Hey everybody, welcome to another webinar with Leap. We've got our awesome partners here, Modernize as well. We're going to be joining Tanner, who's their Senior Director of Business Marketing. Tanner, what's going on, man? How's everything?
Hey, it's great. Great to be here for another webinar with you guys.
Oh, yeah, likewise, man. We're really excited about today's stuff. Whether or not you guys know this, a little bit of history about what we're going to be covering today. Data is really something that's near and dear to Leap's heart. One of the core functionality of the app itself that we've created bakes in a lot of the user data. But we're going to be looking at the other side of the picture today. So that's going to be the homeowner data. So it's how are consumers acting, what's important to them, all of the details that are really crucial in how you structure your business. So one of the things that Modernize has done is, and Tanner's going to talk a lot more about this in a couple seconds, is we're going to be talking through just where the data came from. Long story short, like, I'm a data nerd. I love it. My professional history has not necessarily been in home improvement. It's been in data. And a lot of what I've done is heavy duty predictive analytics. This is the kind of stuff, guys, that truly shapes your organization and truly shapes your operation based on what consumers demand. So today's data is really going to be going over a lot of those core things that you can actually control how you reach out and cater to these data points that we share. So without further ado, we're going to be touching on a couple things. Some quick housekeeping, as usual with any one of our webinars before we get too off and running, is two things. Number one, in the questions section on the right-hand side, again, our webinars are designed to be open forums. If you guys have questions, ask them. Don't sit on them. This is absolutely one of those things where the more you interact, the better this gets. The less you interact, the worse this gets. So by all means, really ask away. So feel free just to make sure that you know how that works. In that question section, feel free to drop in where you're joining from today. I, as well as Michelle, are joining from Michelle, our marketing manager, is also on the call today. What's up, Michelle? So we are joining from the north, or kind of mid-Atlantic, DC, Baltimore-ish area. It's freezing cold and it's November, and as a native Southern Californian, I'm not happy about this, quote, Arctic blast. So, Tanner, you guys on your end, where are you guys joining from today?
We're in Austin, Texas, and shockingly enough, we've also gotten that Arctic blast. It was like 30 degrees when we woke up this morning.
Yeah, but is it like 75 degrees now?
No, it's actually only like in the 40s, and it's supposed to top out somewhere in the 40s. So we've got a few days of actual winter here before it'll be back up in the 70s next week. But
yeah, still, I'm going to shake my fist at you and still demand that you overnight us some barbecue. So
fair enough.
Awesome. Sweet. So thank you guys for doing that. Last thing we want to do too, just real quick, is Michelle's going to drop in a quick poll. It helps us to understand who's on the call, whether you use Leap, whether you use Modernize, or as you can see there, you're either both or neither, but you're excited. So feel free, just take that quick poll, throw that in there, and we'll get this thing rocking. So, Alrighty. Pretty close. Just wait a couple more seconds, let people vote. If you're listening to this and you're not voting, come on, make it happen. Thank you. Awesome. There we go. We're good. All right, feel free to close it up, Michelle. Thank you guys for doing that. Now let's get cracking on the good stuff. So, without further ado, here we go. So, here's the four things we're going to touch on today. So we're going to touch very quickly, and you guys hold on to your butts. This is going to be a very quick recap of the partnership. There's quite a few slides in there, but don't worry about it. We're going to breeze through them really fast. More importantly, is the second bullet point. We're going to be focusing on those data insights provided by the Modernize team. They've worked their butts off to get these responses. It's really cool stuff. We're going to dive into that most of all. We're also going to be pairing action steps. All right. The one thing that we've always seen, and again, coming from the data world, if you pair actions with insights, it's a good thing. But if you just sit on the data, look at it and go, oh, that's really interesting and fascinating, that's awesome, but I'm going to continue operating as the status quo, then you're basically, there's no point in even looking at the data. You always have to make sure that you're not sitting in some sort of state of analysis paralysis. It's when presented with data that truly is meaningful for the operations of your business, do something with it. So we're going to work with you guys and give you just a couple quick action steps. And then lastly, we're going to open it up for some Q&A. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Tanner first and foremost. He's going to talk through who Modernize is, what they bring to the table, how they operate, etc. And really, it'll give you guys a good foundation on where they're getting this data from. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Tanner. Go ahead, man.
All right, thank you. Yeah, guys, so Modernize, we are a kind of marketplace between homeowners and contractors, trying to connect as many homeowners looking at projects in the solar, windows, roofing, and HVAC spaces to a good contractor in their area to do that work as possible. We've been in business about 15 years. We are one of the biggest in this space, and we are constantly, as James touched on, focused on using data to both improve our product for the homeowner and to improve it for the contractor. We worked with a lot of the big guys in this space. Most of the Fortune 500 home improvement companies are clients of ours, but we've also worked with local providers, people 4 or 5 person shops. And we're, I'd say, more than most home improvement lead generation companies, focused on long-term partnerships rather than a transactional relationship. So we have higher monthly minimums because of that, right? We're interested in attracting partners who are wanting to build a kind of sustainable marketing program to grow their business over time. And that also kind of just like weeds out some of the people who aren't as serious about getting started with us and going through kind of our deep dive onboarding process and account management program. We do have integrations with almost all home improvement industry CRMs. So that's the way we prefer to operate. We'd like to send data into your CRM and you have that directly sent to kind of your sales guys, and then try to pull that data back from the CRM to understand how you're working those leads and how they're performing down funnel so we can help you optimize. As I talked about at the top there, we're really focused on 4 core trades, right? So this kind of separates us from a lot of the other players too, who are probably a mile wide and an inch deep. We have more volume in these trades than just about anybody else. We can help you scale in these trades more than just about anybody else in whatever metro area you're operating in. And we also have kind of more data available in these trades, we'll get to in a little bit, to understand the homeowners that are looking for projects in them, and also understanding kind of the contractors, our customers, what their sales processes look like in these trades, and so how these products should perform for a contractor running the right sales process to close them. And we also, kind of our own sales process, focus on a sales process that tries to find the right product for each contractor, right? And so we have a few different products we sell to help with marketing and sales in this space. And our sales team will go through kind of an analysis of your business to see which is the right one. And that'll be based on things like your sales team size, what your marketing costs and CPA goals are, and where you're located and what trade you're in. And one of the values we really tout against kind of all the other competition here is our account management team and how they serve as a partner for growing your business. Everybody that we sign up gets a named account manager from day one. They will be there with you from onboarding until hopefully they graduate you up to the enterprise team because you've grown your business so much. They are all located in Austin, Texas, right? So we don't offshore any of this. And they're going to be, as I said, kind of your partner to understand how best to utilize Modernize marketing products. You'll have regular calls to understand how you're performing at each phase in the sales funnel, against what we see across the country, try to spot any problem areas there, ensuring that the best practices are implemented from that data, and then give you feedback as to how anything that you've changed is affecting performance against targets. And why we partnered with Leap, a hat tip to these guys here. We like Leap because Leap really takes our products to the next level, right? So when we think about the partners we look for, it's natural for us to think about partners who are going to make Modernize's products even more valuable than they already are. And Leap does that through providing really efficient and slick estimating and proposal products in-home, as well as financing options and contracts, right? So one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later is the need from homeowners for financing and the impact of offering that, what that can do to your close rate in home, and so what it can do to kind of the value of any given modernized marketing product. Touch on these next two bullets. Streamlining all those functions just allows you to be that much more efficient in your sales process and have that much more ROI on anything that we're sending you. And we found these guys to kind of be the best that there was at doing these features in one platform.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. I'm going to breeze through this because I know people want to hear the good stuff, so I'll get to it. We did the same thing with Modernize, you guys. If you don't have leads, truly at the end of the day, you don't have a business. And really, why we partner with them versus a lot of the other players out there, these guys just, A, our customers ask for it, and then B, really, as you look at the other bullet points, they're customer force, they're customer focused, tech forward, and really the reputation speaks for itself. So again, these guys are someone that we've really aligned very closely with. We see them at a lot of the shows that we work with, plus we're doing a lot more of these marketing initiatives together. It's pretty sweet. So again, at the end of the day, when you look at all your full functionality, you have your marketing, your call center, your sales, production, even the remarketing functions within your business, whether you're an owner operator or one of those industry tycoons that has 1,000 outside sales reps, like the Powers of the world, you all operate the same way. It's just at a different size and scale. Leap really plugs all those holes that your CRM or your marketing doesn't. Bring in your leads, have all your resources available at your fingertips, whether that be your sales pitch, etc. We integrate with EagleView and Hover, pretty much any of the other main tools that you're going to be using to pull measurements in, especially if we're talking like windows, roofing, siding. Leap works with literally any product there is. All of that can auto-populate. Your financing is all incorporated. We even have the ability to go through and get in-app decisions on financing, which you'll see that's actually going to be one of the big data points that we discuss. All of that can be used to get on-site decisions. You can sign your contracts, upload all of this stuff back to your CRMs, get ordering summaries, as well as the data points like I mentioned. These data points tell you exactly what's going on inside the home. So again, I breezed through that extremely fast. If anyone wants to know more about that, we'll absolutely reach out to you. Feel free to let us know. Again, if you don't have leads, you don't have a business. And at the end of the day, one of the coolest statistics, and this is where we'll start to get into some of the data points, your lead conversions for any of the sold business that you have, 57% of that can be attributed back to the quality of the leads that you put in your company. All right, so when you look at that, the Modernizers of the world, what they pump back in, the quality of leads is everything, but it's not everything. It's a lot, but it's not everything. 43% goes back to your actual sales process. We're going to break down what that 43% does through the homeowner insights that Modernize is going to be talking about. But again, this statistic, I want this to be burned into your guys' brains. It's not just what you do on the marketing front that determines whether your business is going to truly meet the needs of the homeowners that you serve. It's a combination of both optimization of your sales process plus marketing. So again, I'm going to pass this over to Tanner. We're going to jump in. This is the stuff that you actually are here to see. So again, thank you for the shameless pitch or allowing us to give the shameless plugs. Thank you for your patience. Let's dive straight in. Tanner, I'm going to pass the mic over to you because you guys are the foremost experts on where this data came from. We'll talk a little bit more about how that came about as well as going through the actual data itself. So without further ado, I'm going to shut up. This is your show, man. Thank you so much for helping us with this. Really excited.
All right, us too. Thanks, James. Let's get into it. So all this data we'll be covering today is from the quarterly Modernize Homeowner Sentiment Survey. So what is the Homeowner Sentiment Survey? As you can imagine, we get thousands, or rather tens of thousands of homeowner requests on our site each month in the solar, windows, roofing, and HVAC project spaces. And we attempt to survey almost all of them with a battery of questions each time, focused on the 3 areas that we really decided to focus on in these surveys, which are how homeowners research their projects, how they budget and pay for the projects, and then how they select a contractor. So we've gotten, as I said, thousands of responses to each question that we ask in each of those 3 sections. And we publish those, at least some of those results, every quarter in an infographic. I've got a URL there for Q2's infographic. You can go on the site and you can find past quarters as well.
If anyone wants to get the deck after we're done with this webinar, by all means, feel free, just reach out to us. The email will be at the end of this. It's info@lisadigital.com. We're more than happy to share this out so you have access to the links.
All right. Quickly, why should you care about the data, right? It's kind of our belief that knowing your prospects is essential to making more sales, right? So the first thing you should do when you're developing a marketing and sales strategy is really understand the people that you're trying to market and sales to. If you've got bad assumptions about what they know, or they don't know, or they're looking for, or they're running from, then you're going to spend a lot of money on stuff that isn't really going to move the needle, right? You're going to be advertising in the wrong place. You're going to be starting your sales convos off on the wrong foot. You're just not going to be giving the homeowners what they want. This is an effort to try to kind of give you a leg up in that game of really understanding what your prospects are looking for. We'll go to the next slide. Let's get to it. So insight number 1 from the survey for today: homeowners need education. We surveyed these guys and asked them, before they had asked for quotes from contractors, how much time had they spent researching the project that they had come to ask for quotes about. 53% had done between 1 and 5 hours of research. Almost a third had done absolutely none. So to me, the takeaway from this kind of data point is you shouldn't expect the homeowner to come to you with full information about what they want done to their house and how they can achieve that result. You know, they may not know if it's, an HVAC system or maybe even a roof, if it's really a repair or a full replacement that's needed. And they oftentimes have no idea what to expect to pay for these projects and kind of what their options are in terms of what you guys are going to install for them. And so you need to think about being able to do that education for them kind of early on, and trying to position yourself as, their consultant on this project, so they can feel like confident that they understand what needs to be done, and that you're, the person who's educated enough in the area to lead them to the right answer.
The one thing I'm going to jump into, you guys, and say on this slide is it's something that we hear all the time, at least. We hear, especially when helping people come on board, putting their price guides and things like that together, when we ask the question, cool, how do you price out a job? Oftentimes, one of the answers that we hear is, I've been doing this for 20 years. I can just look at a roof and tell you exactly what it's going to cost. That's great. But at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's not about your salesperson. It's not about your production or your install teams. It isn't. It's about how you convey that value to the homeowner and educate them on exactly how you price a job. One of the reasons why things like Eagle View and Hover have become so popular is to say, this is exactly where my measurements come from. Let me tell you what goes into a roof. my wife and I had a deck put on the side of our house. We had no idea that the county we lived in, you had to pull permits. You had to have certain regulations for the size footer on the deck. There was certain measurements that had to be maintained within the spacing of the beams, etc. All of those nuances are things that you guys are the ardent professionals on, but you need to take the time to be open enough to explain that to the homeowners. Hey, let me tell you exactly how we price out a roof. We do X, we do Y, we do Z. The underlayment does this. Pairing that with photos, pairing that with something that's interactive in front of that customer means that you're not just lecturing at them, you're educating them. There's a big difference between the two. One is perceived as a soapbox where you're basically being shouted at, while as the other, that true education comes from something that's collaborative. People don't like to be told, they like to be taught. So again, teaching is something that often involves that back and forth interaction. You got to make sure that you have the tools to be able to do that. So again, that's something that we hear constantly, but it's a big difference between the perception that I am educating them and I'm just yelling at them, or not yelling per se, but I'm just lecturing them. So two very different positions. But Tanner, keep rocking, man.
Great points. Insight number 2 from the survey. Homeowners get info from lots of places, right? So we phrased the question after Google because we've done this survey quite a few times. If you don't put that in, then everyone's going to say they go to Google for search, or like 80% of people. So that got less and less useful without this caveat. But after Google, where do you go to do your info finding, your research on these projects? And 30% said the next most common source were home improvement sites. But the next biggest bucket at 28% was just other, right? And so this were so many different sources, we had to group it into just like its own category of other, because they were everything from Facebook to Home Depot, the other major home improvement sites, next door, like you name it, it was all over the place. And then fewer than 10% listed home improvement TV channels. So like as popular as HGTV, or like name any other TV channel that has 24/7 programming of house refurbishment on it, have become, it seems like those aren't really places that people are going to, with the mindset of learning about these projects. And so I think the takeaway here is that, first thing first, if you can have your site rank number 1 for, roofing repairs in your area, great. That's kind of a given, I think, at this point. But beyond that, like getting a maximum exposure to that top of the funnel homeowner demand requires a broad strategy. They're everywhere, and you're going to have to kind of play in many spaces to get as large a share of that pie as possible. Insight number 3 from the survey, homeowners want, or maybe even just need, financing, right? So we asked homeowners going through our forms, what percentage, if any, of their project they were looking to finance, right? And so we found that 27% wanted to fund up to 25% of the purchase. Another 27% wanted to go all the way up to 50% of the purchase, and almost a quarter are looking to finance the whole thing, right? So those are pretty big numbers when you've got, let's see, 54, you got 77% who are looking to finance at least 25% of the purchase. And that's because a lot of them don't have the cash on hand to pay for the types of projects that Modernize really focuses on, which are these larger ticket, home improvement projects, roofing, windows, and especially solar projects. They're costing tens of thousands of dollars. And, studies I've looked at say that the average American household has somewhere around $12,000 total in savings. And so it's natural that they're looking to financing to get these projects done. And I would say, on top of that, being able to finance a wide range of credit scores is going to greatly increase your close rate, right? So having some type of solution in place that's going to let you get cash in the hands and close deals for as wide a percentage of homeowners looking for these projects as possible is a key insight.
I'm gonna expand on that one too, Tanner. So you guys, one of the things that we've done at Leap is we've worked with a number of different customers of ours to truly understand how they offer financing within the home. One of the ones that we've actually featured on a previous webinar, a company called Paramount Builders out of Virginia Beach. One of the things that they did is early on, they offered financing, but they refused to offer financing in the home. It was just not the way that they had always done it. They worked with a number of other companies just in terms of sharing best practices, and eventually said, you know what, screw it, we hear you loud and clear, we'll try it on for size. Within a month, one of the things that they found is that there's really three main things that came in. So like first and foremost, number one, their average ticket suddenly went up. When somebody's offered financing in the home and they understand exactly what that's going to cost them, meaning they recognize that it wasn't going to be this $15,000 job. It was going to be, I only have to come up with $180 a month or $400 a month. I can do that. It becomes a lot more palatable, and they start to recognize that, well, maybe I can do the windows upstairs and downstairs because it's only the difference between $100 a month. And if I had the choice between paying $100 a month for the next 18 months or whatever it is, or having half of my house with upgraded windows and then I have to go upstairs and look at the other ones that are crappy, right? I'm going to pay the $100. So their average ticket suddenly went up, and it went up by like $1,800. All right. Two, they also saw that their closing percentages went up. When you look at that, it's like, well, okay, when you go in the field, why would your closing percentage go up? It's they had the tool, which, shameless plug number two, they use Leap, but they had the tool to not only educate the person, but they had all the resources at their fingertips to make it so that it was very clear and concise what they were doing. So when it came to explaining exactly how the financing worked, they had estimates on exactly what it would cost them. Well, not exactly, but approximately what it would cost them. So, hey, if you're going to be spending $30,000 on this job, this is what your estimated financing is going to look like. The reps didn't have to do the math. It was at their fingertips, so they could focus on working through any objections that were that happened to come up with that homeowner, because they weren't having to think about all the other trivial things. And then lastly, we talk about another component that really is something that doesn't get brought up in enough discussions, enough trade show presentations, enough webinars, etc. It's retention. They also found that their retention went from, I think it was 79% all the way up to 87%. Or excuse me, it was 77% up to 89%. And when you look at that and you ask yourself the question of, if you suddenly retain 13% or percentage points, not just percent, when you suddenly retain that many more jobs, you don't necessarily need to sell more. You're already selling them. You just keep them. If you offer financing in the home, clearly, according to these statistics, people want and need it. But if you get them the answers that they need and you get them qualified while you're in the home, they're less inclined to take that appointment from your competitor. Why would I do that? I've already gotten approved. I already know exactly what I'm getting. I'm happy with it. I'm not going to take any more appointments. I'm not going to do any more research. They see that as, I'm taking the next step in this process. I no longer need to look elsewhere. I found it. It's mine. Again, people have the mentality that they go as far as financing, they're in there. They feel a lot more personally invested. They're not going to just cancel during that right of rescission period. So again, it's something that's hugely important is, if you know, according to the data set that we're looking at here, that people need that, if you don't have the ability to give them an approval on site, well, guess what? You are basically enabling the most I would say, fear-stricken process or part of the entire sales process. It's that question of, what am I going to get approved for, and how am I going to pay for this job? Like, people will totally forget what the hell they're doing and why they're doing it because they're so concerned with, can I afford it? Right? And then Tanner also mentioned that final paragraph that you see on the screen right there, being able to offer greater financing options for a wide range of credit scores. You need to have second look options. All right? There's plenty of people out there that, out of necessity, absolutely need to put windows or a roof or whatever else onto their home, and it's a must. But they don't have the cash to pay for it, and maybe they took a ding. Life happens. If they can't get approved because they don't have a 700 credit score, or I think 680 and up is considered good. If you can't afford that because you don't have the credit to do it, well, give them other options. It's really simple, and there's plenty of opportunity out there to give them that, and it really isn't any skin off your back as a dealer. So again, I think this is one of the most interesting slides that has some of the biggest ripple effect to the rest of your business. When we went back and did the just back of the envelope math with the Paramount teams, you're talking several million was found just by offering financing in the home and using a tool like Leap. 1 year. That's the difference on their P&L, with millions of dollars. So again, while they have 50 sales reps in the field, that doesn't mean that, cut that by 10 if you have 5. Great. Maybe that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and maybe that's even tens of thousands of dollars. Shit, if you told me you could find tens of thousands of dollars and hand it to me tomorrow, yeah, I'll take it. So again, it's something that you guys should seriously be considering long term, is how am I tackling this within my own individual business? So cool. Off my soapbox. Tanner, back to you.
All right, man. Appreciate it. It's a good tie-in toward the end of your commentary there, because having that financing available and getting people kind of mentally or psychologically invested in having that finance approved is one way that you can separate yourself from the competition that you were talking about. And that's really important, because one thing that we find consistently in these surveys is that almost everyone is getting multiple quotes, right? So over 90% of the people we survey expect to get more than one quote, and then over 56% expect to get 3 or more quotes. Like anyone else, I mean, if you're making a purchase of $10,000 or more, you're probably going to try to go around and shop your options, right? You're not going to go buy a car from the first place you walk into usually. If you're buying all brand new electronics, you're probably going to do some research on which ones have better performance, better warranties, last better quality-wise. Homeowners are going to do the same thing, or want to at least feel like they're doing the same thing for an investment of $10,000 in what is probably the biggest asset they own in life, right? Their home. So, we tell people all the time, there is no such thing as a guaranteed exclusive lead. That is a product request that we hear, every week, at least here. And the fact of the matter is, if these homeowners want to get more than one quote, whether they're getting multiple quotes from contractors that Modernize connects them with, or they're going out and getting them from contractors from other avenues, they're going to go get more than one quote. Like that's the homeowner behavior, and you can't really control that. You have to just, I would say, channel it and try to compete against your competition as best you can. And we believe that you do that really by, as we talked about at the top, figuring out who it is that you're selling to, who's your target market, what are kind of their needs and wants, really understanding them, and then developing some positioning that differentiates you from the market. Maybe you are, as we talked about in the last slide, the contractor who has an amazing array of financing options. So you're just able to clean up in some segment of the market. Or maybe, your kind of competitive positioning and advantage is that you have the best quality, right? And so you're playing maybe for a little bit different customer there. and you're just going to hammer that home throughout your, everything from your website, your ads, to the in-home experience they have with your salespeople and installers. Or it can be priced, right? You can say, like, we're not going to get beat on price. Whatever it is, you need to kind of figure that out from the get-go. That needs to be your strategy, and then make it stick all the way through that process to ensure that you win over as many of those ideal clients as you can. Anything from you, James?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, this is another thing, you guys, too, that we're extremely vocal about here at Leap. One of the reasons why we created this app in the first place was not just the efficiencies. It's at the end of the day, when we start talking about the preferences of homeowners, one of the big things that we always have to go back to is this concept of education. It's a transparent process. It's something that people are demanding more and more. We've actually done a number of research on this internally, again, outside of this webinar, around what people are demanding, whether that be within home improvement or literally with anything they do within their life. Having an open and transparent process where people fully understand what you're doing to them and why is something they demand first and foremost. You're seeing that become more prevalent in our space as well. Again, having come from a much more technologically advanced industry, when I joined this organization and started to see a lot of how companies execute, and even just having projects done on my own house, it's, the home improvement industry at large is actually fairly far behind in terms of technological adoption. I think 50% of all home improvement companies out there still use manual processes to run their organization. So that's, pen and paper to do things. Granted, a lot of those organizations within that statistic will still use something like a CRM, et cetera. They're still using manual processes throughout their business. That with a customer is, at some point is going to be largely unacceptable. If somebody came into your house and said, no, I can't do that, and they'll look at you and they go, why? But if the technology itself says, hey, that's an impossible combination, they look at the technology and they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. It's really hilarious when you look at how that is psychologically just emblazoned into our brains, that, trust technology, not humans. So again, when you talk about this last insight of, get ready to compete, you'll also have to ask yourself, what is my competitor's process? And if somebody walked into the home behind me with a tool that really did X, Y, and Z, is that going to overshadow every value proposition I tried to convey throughout the appointment? The thing that we will say more than anything is, granted, it's the combination of everything. There's no silver bullet to kill the werewolf. But at the end of the day, you can do everything you possibly can to put yourself in a position where you have given them the best pricing options. You have given them the best financing options. You have educated them, and your sales process is one that is just end-to-end complete, where you're not only capturing the data early on to understand what are we doing, why are we doing it, and what really motivates you, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, and then taking that all the way through. Cool, let me show you how we're doing this. Let me tell you why we're better than the next person. Let me tell you what sets our company apart. And let me show you how we're going to be implementing all of this stuff into the best damn experience you've ever had. At the end of the day, and I think there's still one more insight, I think this is a good segue in too, your interactivity with that homeowner is truly going to dictate whether they tell other people. So Tanner, with that said, I'll hand it back to you, man.
All right, sounds good. Rolling over to insight number 5 here, or sorry.
Yeah, I forgot to update the title on that one. So this is the word of mouth is still the best.
That's right. So this is a question around kind of when you look at all the different aspects of a contractor sales process, which is the one that would be most damaging to their chances of closing the deal with you? And number one of all the reasons, kind of, I guess, calling back to what James was just talking about on the previous slide, was an unclear, confusing quote or bid, right? So 100%, as he was saying, homeowners, just as any other consumer in any other industry right now, more than ever expect transparency. They expect to be able to understand what they're being sold, how it's being quoted, what the inputs are, and how those drive an output. And kind of a close second to that, and probably related, is a lack of communication, right? So that could be, I guess, a couple of different things. It could be kind of not communicating quickly or well enough about operational things like appointments, but it can also be not particularly being good at kind of explaining answers to questions that people are asking as follow-ups to those quotes or bids. We kind of started out with this last option here as a joke in the survey, but we were so surprised with how little it mattered at all that we've kept it in, and it's pulled last every time. As long as you're kind of good at what you do, homeowners don't care if you have a big ego about it. Be great and brag about it, and you should close a lot of jobs. Is kind of the key takeaway here. But in all seriousness, that last point is really the key one to me. And I don't know how far back time's gone by. You could probably get away with being more opaque in those quotes, in those processes. But homeowners are getting quotes now from probably more contractors than ever, and those people you're competing with, a lot of them are giving quotes that are more transparent using technology to do so. So I think the contractors that really come off as more of a consultant, someone who's delivering the information and helping them make a decision and really trying to educate them, are going to be more likely than ever to make the sale.
Yeah, and then the last thing, and I don't really have a whole lot to add to this slide because of what I just spoke about, but the other thing to say with this to you guys is the key word in that final sentence is confidence. It's, those that act like they have nothing to hide and make the homeowner feel confident are more likely to win. Again, it goes back to what you do for that homeowner. It's fine to have an ego. It's fine to have a process that is aggressive. It's fine to have any one of these things, but as long as you are transparent. If that customer knows what you're doing and doesn't feel like it's a bait and switch, they can trust you. And whenever there's trust, that bodes confidence. So if a homeowner is confident, you don't have to sell as hard. I think there's a really big misconception that a lot of industry or a lot of folks in our industry kind of flock toward, is that, it's this, I have to have a rebuttal for every objection that I'm ever going to face. Yeah, you do to some extent, but at the same time, you get far less objections when you're transparent. So you don't have to sell as hard. It's a lot easier to train somebody on how to sell in the field if you can proactively teach them that educating a homeowner and being open and being transparent with them and really walking them through and having it be a collaborative process, that's going to boost the confidence of that homeowner so that you don't have to do all those other things. So just really keep that in mind as you start really kind of asking those questions during the action items we provide, like, what am I doing? And is it absolutely working toward the data presented? So moving on.
One last insight, number 6 here. We asked the homeowners, how did you end up finding a contractor? And there was a clear kind of, majority position. No one else was close to the 42% that said they were referred by friends and family. So no matter what you're doing kind of in the new digital marketing space or more traditional marketing avenues, it remains the case, there really is no better advertisement for your business than providing great service and products, right? So if you can instill in the people that you serve your brand as one that really represents quality and great service, then they will almost certainly refer you if they can remember your brand's name, right? If they remember who you are. And so, like, the one nugget I would have here, advice around this area, is to try to ensure that they do. right? So whether that's leaving business cards behind, or ensuring that you send some type of an email, whether it be a receipt, invoice, whatever, that they could quickly, if they say, oh, who's that roofer that, we used 3 years ago? They were great. They can go to their Gmail, they can search for roofing receipt, and there it is. There's your brand name. They can tell their best friend, oh, I would use these guys. Because, especially in the projects that we work in, these kind of larger ticket items, there's a lot of years between when any given homeowner is going to use a roofer or, get their windows redone or have, especially solar put on their house. So you can't always expect them to have those names on the tip of their tongues if you don't give them some help. Anything else?
Exactly. And then the other, yeah, so, and this goes back to the whole concept of leap as well, you guys. Anytime you do any job whatsoever, whether it's sold or whether it's not sold, having a digital record of what happened, having those data insights, the surveys, all those key components allow you to market effectively to these customers and really make it so that your name is remembered. Again, one of the biggest things that you have to recall is that so much happens in the home when your sales reps go out to do the estimate. Hardly any of that gets back to marketing. Again, I am the VP of marketing. I see this all the time. It's 100% a problem when you spend 3 hours in a home and the only thing that I know when it comes back is whether or not it's sold and what they sold. So again, having that understanding of like, what is the survey data? If I go into a house and ask 40 questions around why do you want this? What's important to you? How long have you owned your home? Do you have any kids? Any of that stuff, even notes on site. If that's not seamlessly getting back into your system because you're using a digital tool that syncs with that, you have a problem. So again, moving on, this is kind of I would say, of all the insights, this is that one that we all look at and go, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But it's the one that's the hardest to get. It's the one that really is almost the culmination of points 1 through 5. If you're not doing all those other things, you're not getting that word of mouth. If you're not getting that experience that's really going to drive that person, quality is one thing, but then again, having the ability to really make it an experience to remember is something that truly sets apart big companies from the rest. So let's talk a little bit about action steps. Remember, we said at the beginning of this, you can look at this data all day long, but if you're not doing anything with it, you're probably, you probably just wasted 45 minutes of your time. So let's take a look at it. So step number 1, I think first and foremost, and Tanner, feel free to chime in on this one as well, but it's number 1, you got to develop some assets that are going to easily educate your prospect. All right. This comes in the form of, a couple different things. Like number 1, you got to have some sort of visual. So whether that be brochures that are in a digital format, like the ones you can get in Leap, awesome. If you have those readily available and you're bringing those in paper format, great. You're still doing something to benefit yourself, but keep in mind, there's a cost to paper. It's messy. It's really difficult to keep clean. And then on top of that too, it's a lot harder to navigate. So when you look at it, got to have some sort of tools available, especially when you go in and let's say you put together an estimate for a roof, right? There's multiple options and different lines, etc. Show them the difference of it very quickly, side by side, to say, here's your good, better, best. We always joke internally when we talk with customers about why they would ever set up packages. It's something you can do in Leap. You can put in a good, better, best, and it's a swipe of a finger. All right. And they go, well, why would I ever do that? Well, it's simple. Have you ever been to the Cheesecake Factory? Having a 50-page menu gives me anxiety. If I go to a chef's tasting, there's a reason why they don't do that. You could have the best meal of your life, but you only had 5 options. There's a little bit something for everybody, but at the same time, you're not being completely overwhelmed, and you can take the time to educate them on those few things rather than going through this like myriad of different options. So again, develop that. Have yourself a process that is going to be inclusive of that person and really drives that point home that educating them is one of the most important things that you can do. Anything you want to chime in on that one, Tanner?
Yeah, no, I mean, I would just add, if you're taking the time to kind of set that menu, to kind of make the assets that you're walking them through, I think you get both benefits here. I think you get to be the educator, the consultant to them, but you also get to kind of shape the decision making process that they're going through, right? And kind of driving towards, a couple of outcomes that you would probably find best for your business.
Exactly. Second, all right, cast a broad marketing net. I mean, again, coming from the marketing world and being the VP of marketing at Leap, this is something that we preach to. It's you got to be able to reach your customers on all fronts, even if one is driving a lower volume. As long as you're watching your CPLs and as long as you're watching your spend, you'll know that you're at least hitting all those different avenues and checking those boxes to reach your customers. So again, TV, as we saw, wasn't as big of a deal as people think it is. I know a lot of companies will spend a lot of time doing product placement, etc. That's a horse of a different color. But at the end of the day, there's so many different options out there for a lot of this. You got to make sure that the places people are going first and foremost are digital. You got to make sure that you're reaching them in those aspects. Tanner, feel free to chime in on that one because this is your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I just looking at this point, I realized I kind of left out one key avenue here, which is email. Um, I can't emphasize enough how much you should kind of focus on developing a good email program to a database that you've already paid to build, like whatever channel you brought that data in through, PPC, SEO, driving traffic to a storefront, whatever it is, like you've got the data. Running email campaigns, kind of has tremendous scale. You come up with one creative and you send it out to thousands of people, and just keeping yourself in their inbox and kind of top of mind for whenever they may need that next service. Maybe you did their roofing and they're going to need a solar installation next, and your guys handle that too. That's key, and just a super cheap avenue for retaining that revenue that you've already kind of, I'd say, paid for by getting them in your database.
Yep. Offer financing in the home. Guys, we stress this one enough. I don't think it's one that we need to kick a dead horse about, but at the end of the day, you got to make sure that you offer financing and you offer financing in the home. There's so many valuable components that come from that, whether it's the retention piece, whether it's the increased average ticket, etc. You got to make sure that you're offering that so that people have the ability to pay for that job. It's hugely important. It's a convenience thing, but it's also understanding that you know the demands of your customers and that you have that readily available. Plus, think about this too. How crappy would it be to go to war without a gun? You got to make sure that you're giving your sales teams the tools they need to close the business first time in the field, period. If they're fumbling, they're going like, oh, I guess I just don't have something that's available for you to offer. Great. That's not great. That's bad. It's something that's so easy for you to do as a business. Just take the time as the owner to really set that stuff up and focus on having it available. And then lastly, give those clear quotes. You guys, transparency is paramount. Not only the data from what we've done internally in our own research, but also the stuff coming from Modernize. It's so unbelievably important to be transparent. Like, no one loves the idea of feeling like they were bait and switched. So Tanner, feel free to chime in on this one because I know it's one of the last things we're going to cover. But you guys, you got to make sure that transparency is there in your processes. Otherwise, you're really just shooting yourself in the foot. Aggression is one thing, but aggression with transparency can work.
Yeah, no, I've got really nothing more to add there. I think you've covered it. We've covered it. You got to just kind of be upfront to close the sales these days. No one likes to feel like they're being sold to or having the wool pulled over their eyes.
Exactly. Being sold to, for me personally, even though I come from sales, just makes me feel dirty. So don't do that to your homeowners because you guys personally hate it when it's done to you. So let's open it up for Q&A if you guys have any questions. Is there anything that you guys wanted to dive a little bit deeper on? Is there anything that you guys had questions about? Feel free to throw that in this question section. While you guys do that, we're also going to talk a little bit about both of our organizations. Tanner, feel free, drop in what you guys can do if somebody's interested in using Modernize, especially to cast that wider net from a marketing perspective, and really figure out how you guys can work with them to take them to a better place.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we've got the URL there with our offer for anyone who's in this webinar to go through. And if you fill out a form there to have a conversation with our team, we will offer 15% off of any of our marketing programs for anyone who signs up this month. I can't actually remember us having an offer that large, at least since I've been here. So this is something, doing it because we love the partnership with Leap, and we think that Leap customers are kind of specifically well positioned to do well on our programs, and we're trying to get as many of them on them as we can.
Awesome. And likewise, guys, for us, we believe so much in this, and we do feel that there's such a good pairing between the two organizations. If anyone demos with us in the month of November, month one is on us when you guys sign up. So again, we'll work with you however we can. We're very confident that if you pair Modernize lead gen with the Leap app, you're really setting yourself up for success to hit every single one of those data points that we discussed. Charles, you would ask, is there going to be a recording? 100% there's going to be a recording for this. We'll share it out so that you can follow up on that first 30 minutes that you missed. And then John asks, Tanner, this one's directly for you guys. How do you truly differ from a HomeAdvisor? And I know this is one of the things that we got in the first webinar we did together. So feel free to chime in on that one. Guys, there's a reason why we partner with them and not HomeAdvisor.
Yeah. So a few different ways. One of them is that we are solely focused on those trades that I've talked about here. HomeAdvisor probably has, 80 different things listed on their website. Two things. One, that allows us to drive kind of more volume and more qualified volume in those trades than anyone else. And the second is we're getting more data back in those trades than anyone else out there. We should have a better idea of how any of the leads in solar, windows, HVAC, roofing should perform in your metro area than anyone else. A second big bucket is, as I mentioned in the presentation, we are really focused on longer-term partnerships. We assign an account manager, a real person here in Texas, to every single customer we're signing up. HomeAdvisor and actually most other people don't do that. Excuse me. So I'd say that's kind of two of the big ways that we try to stand out. And then a third one, and an even more recent push, is that we have been putting in place for the past 9 months all kinds of ways to try to increase our product quality. And so we are actively scrubbing out records that we believe to be kind of in the bottom 10% of quality, and just really passing that benefit along to our customers. So our customers are seeing decreases in their cost per acquisition or increases in their return on investment, however you want to look at it, over those past 9 months. And it's really shown a big difference on their end.
And then, Tanner, one other question that I know we answered in the first webinar that we did together was, what's the average number of times that you guys sell a lead to or just a lead that you generate? How many different times do you sell it?
Yeah, so the maximum that it'll go out to, if we have this many buyers, would be 4. The average across the country is somewhere in the 2s, so like a 2.4 or something like that.
Yeah, so that you guys too is another differentiating factor between them and HomeAdvisor. HomeAdvisor is much higher than that. So again, just as a note to self. So that ultimately can go back to quality, but it also is ultimately something that you guys should consider too, and how you are interacting with that person. It's recognize where they come from. If you're getting a modernized lead, exactly what they've been exposed to, and exactly how you should be approaching them each time. So it's that should affect your verbiage. That should affect a lot of other ways. So that you communicate with that person, getting that appointment set. So long and the short of it, you guys, is we partner with them for a reason. They specialize in a lot of the areas that our customers use. On top of that, too, they're just, we talk about that. They are a high quality partner. Now, with that said, guys, any other questions, feel free to chime in. Sorry, my dogs are idiots. They decided to bark on the webinar. Ducky, quiet. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free. Those are the links there. We're always happy to help you guys out. Looks like we're set on the questions. We'll be sharing out any of the recordings with everyone attending. Feel free to reach out with us if you have any questions. And thank you guys so much for attending this, and apologize again for the dog. So thank you guys. Take care. Tanner, always a pleasure. Thanks. I apologize.
Thank you. Good luck with the dogs.
Yeah, it's all good. Someone's knocking at the door. So again, thank you guys so much. Really happy to do this. And we look forward to working with everybody again in the future.